From West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
At the legislature today, news of voter fraud indictments in Lincoln County brings a response from the new senator who's representing that region. Mine safety legislation is one of the major issues at this session. We'll get an early response to what that legislation should contain. And we'll learn more about tourism and how it's promoted tonight on the Legislature Today. Good evening, I'm Beth Voorhees. The state Senate unanimously passed a bill today referred to as the Penn State Law. The measure is designed to avoid a repetition of the alleged child sex abuse scandal in that neighboring state. Bob Brunner has the story.
The vote was 34-0 to make it clear anyone who has contact with a child, including coaches and counselors, must report any incident of abuse promptly. Judiciary Chair Senator Corey Palumbo says there was strong sentiment to make the law clearer.
It expands the group of people who are required to report abuse and neglect of children, but it also makes everyone a mandatory reporter for sexual abuse of kids if you observe it or have actual knowledge that it's occurred. So there will be no more confusion about who's required to do what. This makes clear that if you have witnessed sexual abuse of a kid or you have actual knowledge that it occurred, you're required to report it to law enforcement.
As the Senate gathered, it became known that 2 more Lincoln County officials had pleaded guilty to election law-related violations. Senator Art Kirkendall, who represents the district, says the citizens just won't stand for corruption anymore.
When an issue becomes an issue, no matter where it's at, that's the focus. But if you look around the rest of the country, I mean, they have problems other places. Just in the past, I think Southern West Virginia was a focus area, but I do think it's getting to where people want to do it right, want to do it better, and I think hopefully this will be closure to a lot of things for the future.
The Senate recognized the Leadership Berkeley County group visiting the Capitol and saluted Wyoming County volunteer firemen who saved a woman from a burning house. Then, Senator Mike Green honored the victims of the Gent explosion 5 years ago today, which killed 4 people and badly injured 5 others in a propane explosion south of Beckley.
Mr. President, at this time, if the Senate would please stand and give a moment of silence for those who were lost to this tragedy. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Senate also unanimously passed legislation making it illegal and stiffening the penalties for having any sexual contact with an inmate or resident of any state facility. Previously, the law only prohibited actual sex acts. The Senate also unanimously approved changes to the state income tax and corporate net tax laws to conform with the federal law changes this year. All those bills sent on to the House. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Bob Brunner in Charleston.
Legislators and local officials from the state's eastern panhandle caucused today to assess the progress of proposals affecting their area of the state. There are major concerns about the MARC train from western Maryland serving the Washington, D.C. area. Delegates are worried about losing some services in the region. There are also worries concerning growth problems and funding an expansion at Capon State Park. Delegate John Overington serves as the group's chair.
We have a lot of growth in the Eastern Panhandle that the rest of the state is not experiencing. And so this gives us a chance to focus on some of those issues, such as the additional population, additional jobs, just the whole raft of issues that are growth-related that in many parts of the state it's just the opposite.
Overington says the county he represents has tripled in population over the past 30 years. The House of Delegates has seen one piece of mine safety legislation introduced this session. House Bill 4085 was introduced during the first full week of the session by House Speaker Rick Thompson. Governor Tomlin's mine safety bill was introduced in the Senate today and is expected to be introduced in the House tomorrow. As Adam Cavalier reports, a few delegates are already considering what safety measures should become law.
Governor Earl Ray Tomlin's mine safety bill is slated for introduction during tomorrow's House floor session. It joins another mine safety bill from House Speaker Rick Thompson and Monongalia County Democrat Charlene Marshall. United Mine Workers Vice President and Majority Whip Mike Caputo says that although he's glad the legislation is coming, there are problems with the process.
What really bothers me the most is any piece of major mine safety legislation that passed either on a federal or a state level has always come on the heels of tragedy, and that's sad. But you know, that's the way this industry has always tended to be. I mean, it can take you back to 1968 in my district when the Farmington No. 9 mine blew up. 78 miners killed, 19 still entombed in that operation, gave us the strongest safety bill this country had ever seen, but only because, you know, the nation's seen what coal miners were going through.
Caputo is a co-sponsor of the Speaker's piece of mine legislation. The bills come just a few months removed from the release of several reports on the Upper Big Branch explosion that killed 29 miners. Raleigh County Republican Mike Snuffer says he remembers the aftermath vividly.
We were doing a house for a guy who was an electrician, and my brother had just left work, listened to Mountaineer Talk Show. He backs up the road. He said, "Rick, there's been an explosion at the mine." And Adam was a young, expecting father, building their house, getting ready. And it was several hours before we knew whether or not Adam was in there or not. Driving home that night and passing the families coming down the mines, and you could just tell. I mean, you're looking in your faces, and you're passing each other 50 miles an hour, but it seemed like it was just so slow, and just the anguish. And of course, a lot of my friends, even Beckley, everybody knows everybody in the mines. So a lot of my friends lost family members there. So it was quite sobering.
Caputo says that the legislation should cross party lines in a way that benefits those men in the mines.
I'd like to take a look at both of those bills, come out of here with a piece of mine safety that does the right thing. You know, I quoted that I'm not real interested in compromise here. I'm interested in protecting coal miners, and that's what I want to do. That's first and foremost. We're going to look at those bills. I trust Chairman Miley. I know the process is probably going to start next week. I know he wants a good bill, one that protects coal miners, and, you know, hopefully the end result will save lives.
Snuffer says that while he'll consider the reports from Upper Big Branch, he'll trust the miners on what's most important to include.
You read all these reports and stuff, go in there and talk to the guys who are in there every day and get their input, and that's what I plan on doing. Guys, how do you feel about this? You know, how will this affect your life? And then go from there.
Caputo says he'll use his experience as a vice president with the United Mine Workers to assist with the technical aspects of any legislation that comes through.
There's several important provisions. First of all, you know, rock dust is very important. It prevents explosions, prevents the spread of fire in the event of a disaster. But, you know, making sure that miners can't or won't mine in levels of methane, making sure that water sprays are, I mean, there are just so many aspects of, but you can mine coal safely. Disasters like Upper Big Branch should not happen in this day and age. That disaster was totally preventable. That disaster, in my opinion, was because of greed and neglect and just blatant violations of existing laws.
I like this better than what was done after Sago, when the previous administration just said, we're going to slap something together and I'm going to take it to Washington so I can get something done. I really prefer this. It's been thought through. There's no need to do a knee-jerk, and this way we can do what we need to do. I like that. The governor's people just told me they have something coming, but I don't know specifics. I'm looking forward to see the bill that hits energy, industry, and labor, because it needs something that will prevent it and not just a knee-jerk.
The governor's bill includes provisions that would add crimes for providing workers with advance notice of inspection. It does not provide for the automatic shutdown of equipment based on methane levels, a provision that can be found in the Thompson-Marshall version of the bill. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Adam Cavalier in Charleston.
Two bills were passed out of the House unanimously today by 97-0 margins. House Bill 4107 relates to volunteer firefighter training. Government Organization Chair Delegate Jim Morgan says the bill establishes standards for firefighter training, equipment, and performance.
This is the big one. It will allow these trainings to be provided in segments or modules to help firefighters get the training in a shorter time frames. It will allow for online training and online testing. And if the testing is in person, it must be offered regionally throughout the state, thus saving the volunteer fire departments travel time and costs.
The other bill to clear the House this morning was House Bill 4250, which creates the Uniform Real Property Electronic Recording Act. It authorizes county clerks to store records in electronic form. In a moment, the new Visitor's Guide for West Virginia has been released. We'll discuss issues related to tourism. First, here's a look at some of the bills introduced in the Senate today. Among the bills introduced in the Senate today, Senate Bill 448, Governor Tomlin's bill to require drug testing of coal miners. Senate Bill 449, to create the Uniform Power of Attorney Act and to repeal the Uniform Durable Power of Attorney Act. Senate Bill 451, to prohibit the issuance or renewal of limited video lottery licenses for any location within 70 miles of a dog or horse track in West Virginia. And Senate Bill 457, to continue the Rural Health Initiative. The bill deletes the requirement for the creation of primary health care education sites, clarifies funding mechanisms and auditing, and strengthens accountability. Up for passage in the Senate tomorrow, Senate Bill 108, to require magistrates to possess a bachelor's degree, an associate's degree in criminal justice, or have at least 4 years prior experience as a magistrate, effective January 1st, 2015. Senate Bill 202, to permit the Division of Forestry to enter into stewardship contracts and agreements with the U.S. Forest Service. And Senate Bill 331, to provide notice and the ability to be heard during certain criminal and parole hearings to persons who have resided with a victim for at least 1 year prior to the crime. Among the bills on second reading in the Senate, the amendment stage, Senate Bill 367, to make clear when an owner of real property may be subject to liability for physical injury or death to a trespasser. Senate Bill 382, to clarify that a sex offender must register with the state police in the county of his or her residence and keep the state police informed of any change to the required registration information. The sex offender registry is now computerized, so offenders no longer have to register in every county they visit, work, or attend school. And Senate Bill 385, to update and expand the definition of computer to include tablet personal computers and cell phones as it relates to criminal abuse and obscenity laws. The 2012 West Virginia Official State Travel Guide has arrived and is available free by request or at welcome centers statewide. Travelers will find all the information about shopping and dining and lodging and outdoor recreation and entertainment conveniently arranged by travel region. Joining us tonight to discuss the business of promoting the state's tourism business is Betty Carver, the Commissioner of the West Virginia Division of Tourism. Welcome. Glad you're here.
Thanks so much for having me, Beth.
So tell me about the new West Virginia Guide. Here it is. Looks nice. What's new about it? What's good about it?
Well, I tell you, what we've done this year, we have reduced the size a bit. We found that that is more environmentally friendly. Also, it is more convenient for people to have in their glove boxes or their saddle bags if they're on a bicycle or a motorcycle. We are very pleased with this guide. The cover, of course, is Alpine Lake in Preston County, a lovely region of the state. We actually produce 450,000 of these that we distribute at the locations you had mentioned, and it's also available electronically for all of our website visitors.
Do you ever run out of them? 450,000 sounds like a lot. Do you ever run out of them?
Actually, we get right down to the wire, but we are finding that more and more people, some people are turning from print to the electronic version, and so we are trying to adapt annually to see what we can do to keep people's interest and keep them interested in visiting our state.
So the stars of West Virginia, Morgan Spurlock, Jennifer Garner, Jerry West, Brad Paisley, Bill Withers, Landau Eugene Murphy Jr. is in here.
Yes.
So you can find out a little bit about West Virginia as well.
Right. We thought that was really interesting to try to pepper that up a bit with some of the West Virginians that people are so familiar with and get some of their stories about why growing up in West Virginia was so special to them.
Is Civil War an emphasis on tourism? promotion?
Absolutely. One of the things we have been doing at the division for several years is developing what I think of as our Civil War and sesquicentennial infrastructure, so to speak. For several years, we have been working on the Civil War Trails program. That you may be familiar with. These really preserved and interpreted some sites around the state that you can visit. We partnered with 4 of our sister states. You know, people that are traveling to enjoy a story or to follow along a particular campaign during the Civil War do not pay attention to either county lines or state lines. They are following in the footsteps of the troops. And so we think working with some of the sister states, for instance, if you go to North Carolina's Civil War representation on their website, you will then link over to ours and vice versa. So we are trying to promote the story of the Civil War on a national level. Certainly the importance it was for West Virginia is head and shoulders, so to speak, above some of the other states with the formation. Another thing that we have done at the division, in addition to the Civil War Trails program, is we developed a video. As you may know, we have the state dissected into 9 very distinct travel regions because our state is so diverse. And so we did a small video about each of those regions, the Civil War history of that particular region, but also what you could do today if you visited with your family.
So you can go online and see that video.
Yes.
Right? Very good. What impact do you suppose the Boy Scout camp will have on tourism in the state once it's opened?
You know, one of the things that we also have been getting inquiries, for instance, the woman that does our group tours, the motor coach business, as soon as the announcement was made about the Summit Bechtel Reserve being located here in the state, she was approached by a tour operator from California. We are getting inquiries from all over the U.S. about when we bring our motor coaches of scouts in. For instance, this woman was flying into Dulles in the D.C. area with 1,000 scouts and said, as we make our way to the summit, what would you recommend that we do? And so we are actually developing itineraries all over the state because we think the impact is going to be absolutely incredible. 2013, of course, being the first Jamboree, with 2019 being the International Jamboree. So we are working diligently with people in the hospitality industry, the communities, the absolutely amazing steering committee that is in place so we can be prepared to host these
Sounds
visitors.
like the state's going to be pretty crowded. We can handle it, though, right?
We can handle it.
We can handle it.
We are
All
ready.
Right. 2 issues. The Senate Economic Development Committee will be meeting tomorrow morning at 9. They're taking up 2 issues, if I may talk to you about these for a minute. One is Senate Bill 9 to remove the cap on the amount of annual credit that may be awarded for destination tourism expansion projects approved after June 30th, 2012. What is this bill about?
There currently is in the West Virginia Development Office a Tourism Development Act. There really, when that was put together along the same lines of other programs that are offered there, it is for the larger projects, so to speak. And there was a cap in how much could be dedicated to that program. I think what the legislature is hoping to do is to offer their support to tourism businesses by raising that cap, and also I think there is a similar bill also to that is geared to assisting the tourism industry. You know, one of the things that we have underway right now with the support of the Governor, Secretary Keith Burdett of Commerce, Tourism Commission, and the legislature is a tourism development study. What we are hoping to do here is to benchmark where we are today with the tourism industry and determine what would be the best avenues for development as we go through the next years to see what can strengthen the industry the next 5, 10, 20 years down the road. It's a very competitive business, but it is a great opportunity for the state of West Virginia.
Another bill on the Economic Development Committee in the Senate tomorrow, Senate Bill 13, to provide that the West Virginia Economic Development Authority, in developing criteria for loans to a tourism project, should not consider the number of jobs created or a certain pay level. What does this mean?
I think, again, that is the legislature making an effort to be supportive of the industry. You know, much of the tourism industry in the state are the mom and pop businesses, so to speak, or the smaller. This would help them to seek funding. For instance, one of the things we have found in the Hatfield-McCoy region, which has been a phenomenal development in the southwest quadrant of the state, is they actually have hit lodging capacity. They have more requests for people wanting to come in and enjoy the ATV and off-road opportunities they offer than they can accommodate with lodging. This would help businesses on that level to secure funding to expand and actually enhance what we can offer to visitors, not only in state and out of state.
What's your budget? How much do we spend to promote tourism in West Virginia?
The division's budget is about $3.7 million annually. That, of course, covers the operation of the Division of Tourism, but also the 8 welcome centers we offer. Every year we really set a goal of trying to get about $3.5 million on behalf of the Division of Tourism in the marketplace for advertising and promotion. And that is what the division oversees. There also, of course, is the Matching Advertising Partners Program, which is the matching grant program that is there for the tourism industry to come in, apply, and work to help enhance their budget, stretch those dollars.
$3.5 million doesn't sound like a lot. I mean, you have all of these beautiful brochures, and nobody begrudges you printing them. But how much does it cost to keep up with all the brochure printing that you have to do?
You know, for instance, with the travel guide, we actually have no funding in this. We partner with a company that sells the advertising that you see. We go through an RFP process and select a company to prepare this. And they actually work with us on the editorial selection, sell the advertising, and so forth. So that is how this is produced. A lot of the guides, for instance, the 101 unique places to dine in West Virginia, we think it is very important to develop some of these pieces, working with the different areas of the industry that are so popular. For instance, dining, that's the first thing everybody wants to do is plan.
Where to eat.
And so we try to keep these there. But a lot of times, for instance, with the matching advertising program, the particular areas, for instance, a whitewater company can come in. They would apply for that funding to produce their own piece. So not only do we represent the industry with the pieces that we would produce in-house, we also offer the industry. Our welcome centers, for instance, normally have 1,100 to 1,200 pieces of material that they're familiar with that they use as our sales pieces for
Very
us.
good. Well, that's good to know how that all is paid for. I appreciate that. Betty Carver, Commissioner of the West Virginia Division of Tourism, thank you so much.
Thank you, Beth.
And here's a look at some of the bills introduced in the House today. Among the bills introduced in the House today, House Bill 4337 to create the misdemeanor offense of depriving a rightful heir to possession of Civil War or any wartime medals. House Bill 4340 to require the West Virginia Secondary Schools Activities Commission to propose legislative rules concerning concussions. House Bill 4342 at the request of the Secretary of State concerning the preparation and sale of voter registration lists. The bill establishes the fees to be collected and requires those fees be deposited in the State Election Fund. House Bill 4344 to provide for the control of specific potentially dangerous wild animals to protect the public against health and safety risks and to establish criminal penalties. The bill is in response to an incident in Ohio where wild animals were released from an animal sanctuary last year. Up for passage in the House tomorrow, House Bill 4060 to provide that any corrections employee who engages in sexual contact with an inmate is guilty of a felony regardless of consent. An authorized pat-down, strip search, or other security-related task does not constitute sexual contact. On second reading, House Bill 4062 to create an in-home direct care workforce registry within the Bureau of Senior Services to detail qualifications and experience of in-home direct care workers in West Virginia who have agreed to criminal background checks. House Bill 4103 to authorize the Division of Motor Vehicles to take a lead role to plan and coordinate the consolidation of government services and enforcement of laws currently administered by various state agencies pertaining to the motor carrier industry. House Bill 4125 to delay until next year the time for each school to implement the school's crisis response plan. And House Bill 4291 to authorize the Supreme Court of Appeals to determine which county law libraries are being used and should be continued as an obligation of the state. And this has been the Legislature Today. Tomorrow we'll begin a series of discussions about economic development and education in the state. Tomorrow our guest is Keith Burdett, the Secretary of the Department of Commerce. On Wednesday, a discussion about education issues with Senate Education Chairman Robert Plymel and Senator Larry Edgell. On Thursday, we'll discuss how education and economic development go hand in hand with Senator Richard Browning and Delegate Doug Scaff, the chairs of the Economic Development Committees. We welcome your comments about our legislative coverage. You can email us at feedback@wvpubcast.org or address your letters to the Legislature Today, West Virginia Public Broadcasting, 600 Capitol Street, Charleston, West Virginia, 25301. I'm Beth Voorhees. Thanks for joining us. Good night.